Hi, this is Mike, and we're looking at the Bitcoin chart. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about the bullish potential for Bitcoin, but bullish in a way that needs explaining according to this new idea. So, on the chart, you can see the labels from the previous idea that calls this something like a top in the market and expected prices to go down. So, one thing you've got to understand about my ideas is that as I progress, every time I make a video, right, I'm learning, right? It's like it's like machine learning, right? How do you make like an AI more intelligent, right? You got to feed it more info. So it's the same with a human being, right? That's where do you think they got that from, right? Our minds are like computers too. So one thing you have to understand is that as I see more of the waves identified according to AriasWave, I start to build like a library of examples in my mind at all degrees of trend, which I then process in the background. And over time, I start to see things that previously I had not thought of and discounted, right? Because we're looking at patterns evolving over time, and you can't exactly see into the future, but if you have that library of patterns in your mind, then it's easier to make those kinds of distinctions, right? So obviously for the markets, for like for example machine learning, it would be quite difficult to feed every pattern, every degree of trend based on AriasWave, because there's just so many different combinations that it would just take a long time to do. And how would you do it? Well, maybe they already do it. Maybe it's not called AriasWave to them. Maybe it's called something else Wave. Maybe it's just called their trading app, trading program, whatever it is. So here we're dealing with an idea which basically still has the idea that this is a one, two, three, four, expanded four, right? Because in my opinion, this here is a type two expanded zigzag, right? And here's a B, a C, a D, an E, because patterns only appear in certain places, right? And if you've got a zigzag looking thing here with a 5-wave move, it's a C. And if you've got a zigzag thing, D expanded, well, that looks like a 5-wave move, E. Right? I've explained these before. And those are not the waves that I'm talking about. The waves that I'm talking about in my updated bullish idea is all this stuff that's happened since 2015, right? So I'm expecting a 5-wave move from the end of wave 4. And then we start to see a weak pattern evolve. But how much of that weak pattern have we actually seen? This is the part that I've been aiming to answer. So what happens if, okay, we have a zigzag wave 1 and a wave 2 here. Right, we have A, B, and we have a C, D, E pattern here. What happens if this is not wave 3 here, but what happens if this is a 5-wave move here for a large wave 3 zigzag pattern? Right, now this is where it gets interesting. So bear with me as I just move some labels around. So what happens if this here is just an A wave, right, of basically wave 3 zigzag up? Right, now I've been very careful in thinking about this idea over many, many days. And only if I see it to be true will it make any sense to me, right? As in, go through the waves, think about it, every day, go back. Does it still make sense? Go back again, right? And just make sure that there's nothing in my, active in my thoughts that's going to, pollute the analysis in some way, because that happens. And I've noticed it as well. Like as I learn patterns, I also learn my own thoughts and thought patterns and biases, and you've got to keep those at bay. So here we talk about that being an A wave, this being an A. So A in brackets, first part of a zigzag. A is in the correction for wave B, right? So wave B could potentially be the move that's ending now, a wave B in brackets, right? So obviously that took me down the rabbit hole of investigating this 5-wave move here, right? Because according to the bearish view, it would appear that this is an ongoing pattern that can potentially go much lower, right? So that there, at the moment, at this point in time, I'm going to have to be a little bit careful with how I tread with thinking this, because when it comes to zigzags, and sorry, I'll label the rest of it as I talk about this. When it comes to zigzags, in this particular case, it would be, um, well, it must be a type 1 expanded zigzag, right? Because type 1 simply means that the corrective portion of the zigzag expanded above the first move up, the A wave, but then came down to the area of the first move, the end of A in brackets, all right, or parentheses. So that there sort of explains a bit about the expansion and the comeback. But in saying that, that also means that it's come back to a sufficiently low point for it to be considered, a type 1 with no rules broken. So for me, that there is, it's sort of making me think, well, hang on, maybe this move down doesn't have much left to go, right? And if you measure the move, if you measure the fib, uh, actually, this is not quite right. Actually, sorry. Let me just fix this fib up because it's only meant to go there. Okay, the fib's only meant to go from the end of wave A, from the start of wave A. Okay, so that means that these areas are of interest. And if you look at the price action there, it looks to be respecting it quite well during that move up in 2019 and 2020. So I'll get rid of this trend line because it doesn't mean anything. And the way that the, the market came down on that line, it reacted, bounced, went through it, came back up above it. And now what? Now what's going to happen? Okay. So I've also been thinking about the internal corrections that happened up here. All right. I could only call this a wave A. But what happens if it's not just a zigzag? It's those waves at a small degree are pretty crazy to say the least. They're not usual and they're very weird and volatile looking. So I'm thinking maybe that could be a full correction. Maybe. One that I have trouble identifying. I'll admit it. I have trouble identifying the waves in this pattern because it's a wacky pattern. Okay, so was this a wave 3? And is this a wave 4? And are we about to see a move down for wave 5? The alternative could be that potentially the first move down was a zigzag, wave 3 zigzag, and then maybe wave 5 zigzags coming now. Okay, and maybe will it pull back into the area of 50% or 0.618? Okay, so that would be around $10,000 for the low, or 8,000 roughly. Okay, so 10,000 or 8,000 before we get the next bull run. Okay, so let's just take a measurement, just why not, whilst we're here. Let's just take a measurement of what the upside potential could be if this turns out to be somewhat accurate. Okay, so that would mean that we will take the length from 50% and put it up, which would give us an upside target of just above 400,000. Or if we go from the 0.618 area that would give us an upside target of about just over $300,000, right? Now, when you look at it like this, it makes more sense, the upside target. Okay, the upside target starts to make more sense in general because obviously that's a large number for a crypto to be worth. So for it to be worth that much, it'd have to come from some kind of analysis that gives you some kind of insight that could be some potentially possible. So in this case, it'd be a wave 3 zigzag. Okay, that's how I would see this, and then we'd come back down again. Okay, we'd come back down, potentially, how can I say it? Resistance becoming support, a confirmation of that potentially, and then making eventually a final move for wave 5 zigzag. So wave 4 could be deep, wave 5 complete, and I think that's when we'll eventually top out. Might even be at around 1 million. That could be the ceiling for this move, because like I said, I still believe it's a week 5 wave move, which is the ending move for a trend. I'm starting to think that potentially it's just not over yet. Okay, so I do think eventually it'll top out and fall and crash or whatever. So the opportunity for the money to be made will be during this period towards the end of this move. I mean, it's already been made, but there's even more to be made. But it'll eventually get to the point where there's no longer any more waves to subdivide into. So therefore, it probably will end up topping out sometime in the next few years, right? Sometimes in the next, maybe by 2030, who knows? I don't have no idea, right? All I can understand is the waves and what is expected next. So I will do more work on understanding this particular move that's in progress, because it still requires more work to fully understand what I'm looking at here, because I'll say it once again, it's pretty complex. It's pretty complicated. And the attempts that I have done at understanding this pattern, I don't think it's done it any justice. So please stay tuned as I continue to bring more updates on this evolving analysis and try to get real with this potential E wave, which would be the last move down in the corrective portion of this, what I believe now to be a zigzag. So then we can get ready to trade it in the next bull market. Okay, so no more Bitcoin to zero according to AriasWave, just a bit more clarity on the waves. And I don't care if I flip the script. To me, as long as I get in on the next move, whatever it may be, and it's not too far away, I think that'll help a lot of people understand about what's going on. But for the meantime, I can say with a certain degree of confidence that this move down doesn't look complete yet. And if somebody decides to make it complete because they're impatient, just be careful with that. If there happens to be some evidence that starts to suggest that that could be a possibility, I'll let you know my thoughts. But at this point in time, I'd expect at least one more low and a retracement that would go back to at least 50%, because otherwise, if we're going to move up from this point here, then more than likely you're believing the next bull market will take this to over $500,000 a coin. So you think about how realistic you want to be versus just always thinking about the moon and your next Lambo, right? Because the levels change as you go down in retracement. If wave C happens to be even as long as wave A, which sometimes they can fall short and be slightly shorter, right? So the opposite is also true. You could end up being longer. So hopefully you found this video interesting and informative. Thank you for watching.